We'd like to welcome everybody for coming, and thank you for being here. Dr. Bruce Finkley has revived our media day for the Department of Communication, so we appreciate him and y'all coming out and talking to our students about what it is that you do. My name is Mr. Pruitt. I'm not a doctor. Anyway, I just... no. And I'll be the moderator. I'm hoping our students come up here. And I know it's just easier for them to just yell it out, but for audio quality purposes, it's going to sound really beautiful on the camera that I was diligently setting audio levels with. So I'd like to have them come up and ask questions momentarily. But let's first give you a microphone, the microphone I have, and we'll just pass it on down and name and what it is that you do.
My name is Jason Ruha. I'm a business partner in a production company called Protagonist Digital. And we work directly with corporations that already have an established brand. And we are the storytellers that bring that brand or that hero to life.
My name is Sydney Robertson. I'm working at Hibbett Sports, and I'm the digital video producer. So I make web videos for our website. I make shoes videos, backpack videos, any type of videos that our company is selling those types of products.
And I'm Philip Pritchard. I own Video Visions Media Marketing. This is Kim Scher. She works with me. We specialize in local video marketing, focusing on YouTube, Facebook, social media, anything that helps local businesses get found and get their message out.
Hey guys, I'm Nate Dennis, and I do motion graphics and editing for Strong Automotive Merchandising. So we do TV commercials, is my department, for different automotive dealerships all over the country.
I'm Dylan Lard. Our company's Pitts Media. We do commercial, corporate video production, and our kind of niche is we like to kind of go after and work in industries that might have never necessarily seen a more of a modern brand or media approach, and we're very lucky to lend some cool clients and get to do some really cool videos.
And I'm RJ. I work with Dylan. I'm the director of photography over at Pitts Media out of Birmingham. And like he said, we're blessed to be able to work with some cool clients in the outdoor industry, the construction industry, and create good content for them that's mostly hosted online.
Okay, first question. I'll have to go first, or... Okay, come on up, Russell, and give it a go.
What are some of the challenges you guys face day to day with your responsibilities?
Well, I'll start since I have the mic. That's a very good question, Russell. Thank you for asking. And for people that don't know, Russell is actually our intern, so he should know the answer to this question. So I'd really like to ask you what are some of the challenges that we face. But for me would be, in what I do is definitely logistics. We work with a lot of trucking companies, a lot of construction companies around town, and being able to safely get a camera crew out there sometimes is a challenge in itself. And when dealing with logistics and the clients that we work with, one thing that we need to keep in mind is any moment that they're not making money, they're losing money, obviously. So if they're spending a lot of time on a production day with me and the crew that we have out there, they're essentially losing money. So I always try to keep that in mind and just always keep in mind that their time is very valuable to their business.
I'd say for me, what all kind of surprised me over the years of learning, you always think the process and the technical element of it is the hard part, is the challenge. And in the reality of it, the biggest challenge it really is interacting and working with the people, the clients, the people on the job, the people working through post. That has always been the best kind of the magic to a degree, in my opinion, is just working with the people in the process and that kind of soft skills of communication there. That in turn, inevitably, you can deliver a good product with a good result for the client.
I'd say the biggest challenge in my department is just really being able to come up with new, fresh, creative content month in and month out without it, without getting your local start to get stale or something. So keeping it fresh is probably our main goal.
I would say scheduling a lot of times, getting everybody's schedules to mesh and, the day of the shoot and getting everybody the day they could be there and that kind of thing. So that's something we run into a lot.
Yeah, and my biggest, I guess, hurdle as the business owner, and now that we're focused so much on local businesses, is trying to find those clients who actually understand why they need to spend money on marketing, why it's important, and why they need to be in the social media world, even though a lot of them don't think they do. So our biggest challenge is finding those clients and not having to recreate the wheel every time we try to sell something to somebody. So, and then my goal is to find those clients and then make her scheduling job terrible.
I would say the most challenging, but the most fun part of the challenging aspect of my job is trying to make all sorts of different shoe videos different in their own way. So every shoe is worn by a different person. And so being able to write that script and imagining what type of people wear those shoes is kind of fun for me, but it also can be challenging. So right now is baseball season. So I'm making a lot of baseball cleat videos. And so a challenge that I've been having is trying not to make all of the cleats sound the same, but yet individual and special in their own way. And so that way being able to represent the vendor itself, whether it's Nike or New Balance, but also make them sound cool in their own way because every customer is different.
The biggest challenge that we face is educating new clients and re-educating existing clients on why it's important to hire professionals. Our market has really taken an interesting turn with the amount of products now that will shoot video. And so everybody has a brother who knows a brother who has a camera, and it can do it for less or for this. And so we always have to, work with clients and say, well, this is, we have so much experience, so this is our reel. This is kind of the biggest challenge that we face, and let them, hey, go ahead and use your brother and your brother's uncle, and that's fine. But then when you need something else, give us a call. That's kind of our biggest challenge, is to overcome that.
Anybody else have a question to come up here and talk in the microphone so we can record it really good on the camera? Anybody? Oh, you ought to have questions. Okay. Why did each of you go down this career path? Why?
Careful. Well, there's a long and short story of this. I went to University of Alabama to become a doctor. After my first year, I realized that I wasn't going to make it being taught in a large classroom setting. I had a difficult time learning in Biology 101 where there were 300 students, and it didn't matter if you came to school or not. You just basically would show up for the test and get a grade. And I came from a high school in Colorado where I had real small classes, real intimate learning, and really cool teachers. And so when I got to Alabama, I was like, oh boy, my counselor said, no, you're not going to go to medical school with those grades, So it's time for a career change. Filmmaking was always something that I always did with Super 8 cameras and stuff when I was growing up. My grandfather, my father were big Super 8 camera guys. And so I went over to the College of Communications, was walking through there, and much like this place, I walked through the production department, I walked through the studio, and I saw a lot of bells and whistles and lights and cool stuff. I said, man, I'm going to do this. And from then on, that's how I chose my career path, and I haven't stopped. It's been awesome.
For me, the reason why I chose this career path is, similar to Jason, I've always made videos when I was growing up, and recently my parents have discovered these videos that I have created with their old video camera, and they like to bring it up and show me every time I come over, so that's always a fun time. And so as I reflected on when I was coming to Montevallo of, hey, I've always liked making videos. I've always liked being in videos. I was going to do theater, but when I came and saw this department, I was like, wow, I can make a career out of this. And so once I started doing that and telling stories, which is really like the golden part of my job, and I love telling stories, so I would say that's probably why I chose my career path.
I started out in audio recording. My dad was a songwriter and a BMI music publisher, so I grew up around music and recording studios. And when it came time to go to college, my sister had actually attended the University of Montevallo, and I had visited here before. And at that time, the communications department was in the little white barn. I don't know if anybody has seen a picture of that. I know you don't remember it. So it wasn't super impressive, but it was something that I felt super comfortable with. So I kind of got in on the audio side of TV production, and then quickly realized if I was going to make a living at this, I probably was not going to do it in radio or audio recording. So I got interested in the TV side, never did get super interested in the news side, was always more creative and wanting to tell people stories. And I think that is what I've kind of always known what I wanted to do. What's exciting now is being able to kind of create your own market, and there's so many opportunities out there in video that weren't there even 5 years ago. So that's kind of how I got started. Kind of have always known what I wanted to do, luckily.
For me, I came to Montevallo, I graduated from Montevallo, and I wanted to always be on the news. I wanted to be the next Pam Huff, you know, so that's who was big when I was growing up. And then I realized one day that I just didn't want to tell bad news every day. I wanted to, you know, any negative stuff. You know, I wanted something light and fun. And Philip and I, through a mutual friend, got hooked up, and I started working for him several years ago. And I love it because it's creative, and it's, you meet somebody, I love people, and it's something new every day. We host some online video series that are, they're positive and they're fun, and so that's why I do it, for the people and for the relationships and for the creative side of it.
Mine was really more opportunistic than anything, you know. I just, you know, you take the first job out of college, and then it was an assistant position, and then eventually, you know, the spot opened up. That was something that I thought I would really be interested in, so just moved it up within the company that way.
Well, I think I'd kind of share some of your story, Jason. I guess I transferred from Alabama in a big school, and you know, the small environment really kind of drew me to it, and you know, I started as a history major, and that didn't last very long. And when they assigned the 18-page paper, I was like, oh, okay, I'm gonna go look for another major, and I found this building. I was like, where's the Mass Comm building? I was like, oh, it's about a satellite. I was like, oh, okay. I walked in here and just saw this cool electronics. I was like, I can play on a computer. I didn't know I could get a job doing that, or a career, and just kind of jumped it in at full force and really enjoyed it, and just found kind of where I kind of started in audio too as a musician, and always wanted to do that, but it's a tough market, and there's not a lot of money in it. You know, kind of learned the process here of video, and you know, we kind of got out of school and knew we didn't want to do news and sports, and kind of just saw this opportunity in this niche, and all these kind of diverse industries that 5-10 years ago, the price point and the model of shooting video and delivering deliverables to them was completely different. It wasn't even hardly possible. So it's just been a lot of fun. It's always there's always a new day, a new project, and a new client, and it's kind of like the class that you never stop taking. Everything's always something new and interesting to learn about. Whether it's a process, a company, a brand, a story, there's always something good out there.
Well, thank you, Dylan. I would say everybody's story up here is probably going to be the same. They enjoy telling people's stories, meeting folks, but really, and that's the same for me as well, but what really continued on for me is I took a look around, and I did start in sports, and I was filming for ESPN and Fox Sports, and a lot of my friends were paying hundreds of dollars to go to these games, and here I am standing on the field running a camera, getting paid to do it. And then it correlated over to Pitts Media, where I'm traveling all over the world. Yes, I'm meeting fantastic people, I'm seeing wildlife, I'm seeing things that I could never ever dream of. But once all that started to really hit for me, there's just no place I'd rather be than at Pitts Media doing what we're doing and meeting all these folks like the people up here on this panel right here. I mean, no matter where you go, you're going to meet great people in this industry, and a suit and tie just really doesn't fit me. I can't sit in an office like that. I can do some editing if need be, but I'll start going crazy. I have to be outside, and we're in the outdoor industry, and that's what I've loved to do my whole life, so there's nothing else I'd rather do. So,
Thank you. any of you have a question come to mind yet? Be thinking about one, because I don't want to hoard all the questions. Okay, if you could go back and tell your
She has a
college.
question.
Okay, come up here, please, ma'am. That's fine. If anybody else has a question, come up here as well, please. Yeah, that's true.
Hey. Hi. Are there any, I guess I could say, character traits or maybe like essential parts of, I guess, yourself that you think make you, that really help you with your job and help you be successful at what you do?
For me, absolutely. I'm very aggressive. I'm very abrasive. And as a director, sometimes I found I just have to be abrasive. People like to talk on set, and I have to be the one to say, hey, we've got to move on to the next shot or the next scene. So it's been very helpful for me. Also, just I'm a friendly people type of person. I mean, obviously you're working with people on a consistent basis, and one thing I was always taught, they can teach you how to work with the cameras, but they can't teach you how to work with people. And that's ever changing every day, so I think just having that mindset of understanding that maybe your idea isn't always the best idea, and working and collaborating with the people around me makes me a lot more successful in what I'm trying to accomplish on a day-to-day basis.
I'd say being detail-oriented. I mean, the devil's in the details, they say. And from a production standpoint, from start to finish, it's all about the details. Whether you're managing a project, producing on the front end, or going through the creative phase, listening and working with the client, understanding what their needs are, what they want the piece to say, or helping them develop actually what they want that to say, all the way through, one teacher always told us 80-20. 80% pre-production, 20% production. The production and the button clicking is almost the easy part when you really think through the details of the front end and throughout and how that affects every part of the process.
I would say probably the ability to think creatively and kind of plan ahead for my graphics and stuff, to give them kind of a new look every time. Still keep them, up front, and in automotive, everything needs to be big, bold prices, so it kind of limits what you can do. So you really have to kind of stretch for those those new looks every month.
I think flexibility. You have to be flexible in this business because things change on a day-to-day basis. You may be filming at 10 o'clock one night, have to be somewhere at 4 o'clock the next morning. You just have to be willing to be a go-getter and just roll with it. And there's a lot of things change, and schedules change, and things happen. You may be in the middle of Walmart one day filming something, and in the great outdoors the next day. So you just got to be willing to roll with it, and kind of whatever situation you get into, and just be flexible and willing to hang in there.
I think my biggest thing is just try not to be intimidated by any situation. Some of my biggest, longest, best clients have come because I was the one who was able to just step in and kind of take over. Sometimes I knew what I was doing, sometimes I didn't. They didn't know the difference. At the end of the day, I was the one who got the job done for them. So don't be intimidated to go into any big situation. I found myself working with superstars one minute and, a little grandmother the next minute, and I treat them all the same. So I think that's something real important, is just know what you're comfortable with and don't be afraid to attack any situation.
I would probably say, along with people skills, because working with all sorts of different types of people who communicate differently, being able to assess the situation and handle it the most effective and the most efficient way, but also in a way that they feel comfortable. And also being detail and deadline oriented, because for me, I make videos by the week, so I need to make that video complete and make it look good and approved by the end of the week, so that way it can be on the website the following week. So right now it's baseball season, as I said earlier. Baseball season comes and goes really quickly. So if I don't meet my deadlines, then the shoe videos, the cleat video is not up. We might not sell them as well. So being deadline oriented is a very important characteristic.
I think a lot of us hit on this already, but definitely an important characteristic is communication, by the way of communicating your creative idea to those who basically have a question or a problem for you. So, hey, we want to market this. And then we as creative folks come up and sit down with this great idea, and then we have to present this idea. And presenting this idea, you're almost like selling this idea, right? And you have to let them see your vision or hear your story or figure out how you're going to do it, because you really want them to get excited about it. And so that's definitely a characteristic, is just being able to communicate these ideas, because right now they're just ideas. They're not hard numbers on paper. They're not algorithms that you're trying to solve. These are just really cool, creative storytelling ideas that we're all trying to do, right? And sometimes the clients are, you're pitching to accountants, right, who come from the accounting side, which there's nothing wrong with it, but you see the world differently than they do, and that's why they're accountants, and we're creative. But being able to effectively communicate those creative ideas is probably one of the strong, the biggest characteristic.
Okay. Anybody else in the room have a question before I go back to my list? All right, Russell's got one. Thank you, sir.
All right, so we're all students, and I think one of the biggest things that I always have a question for is, what are skills that you think that we should be learning as students to go into your profession? Like the very first thing we should be learning in order to put our foot in the door going towards media professionals.
All right, well, I'll start this from production. So from the production side of things, the actual being on set, because that's really basically where a lot of our stuff is being done, is on set and in the edit suite. But have a really hard work ethic. This business of ours knows no time clock. It knows no calendar. You work on your birthday, you work on your anniversary, you'll work on Christmas, you'll work on New Year's, you'll work when you're, hopefully, not on your wedding, but you'll definitely be there. It's this business. Exactly, yeah, bonus. But I mean, and it knows no time clock, so it's amazing how many hours we spend working. After the shoot is done, we're back in the edit suites and we're working until late at night, and then after we get done, then those things have to go to the client, and the client has to buy off on it. Then it has to be pushed out to whatever digital media it needs to be pushed to, and there's just, everything happens, and everybody wants it to happen like yesterday too. So just having a strong work ethic, and realize that a 12-hour day, a 14-hour day, 8 of it might be shoot, the other 10 or 12 might be dealing with the media aspect of it. That's a normal day for us, and it's just the way it is, and that's just something that we look for. We look for, when we have an intern that works, we have an intern that's not going to say, "Hey man, it's time for lunch." Well, yeah, we know it's time for lunch. Do you see any of us eating? No. We'll grab some lunch. We had an intern. We've had a lot of interns. We had an intern who liked to smoke cigarettes, so it was like every 4 hours he had to have a cigarette break. We're like, no, time out. We like to smoke cigarettes, but we'll take a cigarette break when we all take a cigarette break. So it's just like, no, everything has to be just stay observant, eyes wide open, head on a swivel, and just learn a lot. You'll learn so much just through osmosis, just from watching the folks up here on this panel. If you have an opportunity to work with us, you'll have an opportunity to just absorb a lot. And wow, why did they do this way? Why did they go through this process? Because we all have our processes that make our businesses successful. And I think that's one of the keys.
I would say one thing I would like to encourage you all to be working on now is getting your hands in and on everything that you can do at this moment. Because when you get out of here, people are already going to be looking for experience. And that experience doesn't have to be from a job. It can be something that you're doing for fun. So if you make YouTube videos about a talk show, or if you make YouTube videos about reviews, that's experience that you can be doing now in your free time, in between classes. Interview your friends about what kind of phones that they're using. Just anything that you can get your hands on would be something that would be wonderful to do. And I see Dr. Cofield laughing, because he always encouraged us to go work at the basketball games, which I'm sure he always does. And that is another wonderful thing that you can be doing to be getting experience, because if I hadn't been working at the basketball games with Dr. Cofield, then I wouldn't have as much confidence that I have now working with different types of people. So I would just say, as cliche as it sounds, just get your hands in on everything that you can.
Kind of same point. From a production standpoint, learn everybody's job. Learn what the audio guy does. Learn what the editor does. Learn how to do an interview, especially if you're going to be an on-camera talent, if that's your thing, or if you want to be just a camera op or director of photography. The more you know about the process and what that editor has to do, the better you're going to shoot your product, and you're going to make his job easier. Same with the editing. The editing or the script writers are going to be able to, give you a much better idea of what you need to go out and document or create for this production to work. So I would say learn everybody's process. Even if you just want to be a camera op or you just want to be a broadcaster, learn what everybody does and respect what they do, and you just have a much better feel for it. And you guys are so blessed to have YouTube and social media, because you basically have your own TV networks. I mean, for us to get anything seen in our day, it literally was an act of Congress. Unless you were on the news doing a news broadcast or something, you may see something, or if you're a freelancer for ESPN, you may see a video clip come on before a game and go, I shot that. But now you guys have the opportunity to create content and get real feedback and know if what you're doing is interesting. And then when you go to apply for a job, the best thing to do is go, here's my YouTube channel, or here's all the videos I've created, and here's what I want to do. And then your story speaks for itself.
I would say put your phones down and learn how to communicate with people face to face. Ask lots of questions. Talk to your professors. Talk to other students. Talk to people in the industry. Just get to know them. You've got to know how to communicate with people and how to have real conversations. And I would say that would be a huge thing I'd be working on.
Well, for something as specific as what I do, obviously you want to master the software, the tools you're going to be using, first of all. And then second, you need to learn to work on a really tight deadline and put out some good content, in a short amount of time, because after school, if you're late on something, you're not going to get an F. You lose a client, lose money. So that's what I would focus on.
Y'all stole all the good ones. I mean, really all of the above, what they're saying. Your tools, learning your tools, whether you're in production or post-production and it's software, or you're in creative where it's those communication and interpersonal skills of listening to a client, hearing what they want. But I think really, as far as a direct skill set, and maybe I say this because I wished I had done it more, but your writing skills and just the creative process, creative thought process of how to hear what someone wants and what a client needs, or say, hey, we want to sell more of this product or service. How do you think about that? How do you create a new idea that, in turn, you translate that into a bunch of technical production tangibles that you can put your hands on, and then how does that deliver, and then how do they use that? But just writing and just the whole process as a whole, from the nitty-gritty detail all the way down to the big picture perspective.
It's tough going last creating new content down here. You guys are taking it all, but if I was to say anything, something that I continuously see, something that we continuously see is when students get out of college and they reach out to any of the companies up here, they just don't have content to show. That each one of you has a brand. It's your own brand, whether or not that's you correlate that to a company that you start, or if you want to work for another company, it's still a brand or something that you have to offer. So students and young individuals, old individuals as well, in the industry, they'll reach out sometimes and say, hey, I'd love to run camera for you guys, but they don't have anything to show. So the first thing I'm going to respond in an email with is, okay, where's your demo? Can I see a demo reel? Can I see some work? If you don't have a demo reel, is there a page where all your stuff is hosted on that I can get an understanding of what your skill set is and what value you can bring to our company or any of the companies up here? So, starting now in college, it's very important to start marketing yourself, the skill sets that you have, and making sure you're putting the right brand out there for yourself and what you guys enjoy doing.
Thank you. If each of you could go back and tell your college self something, one thing, what would it be?
Well, if I how much time do we have to think about that? If I could tell my college self one thing, you know, no one's going to give it to you. Especially in this industry, you have to go take it. And if you don't go take it, someone else will take it from you. And it wasn't a culture shock for me because I'm used to working hard. I've kind of grown up like that. So I just went right into it. But I see a lot of mistakes in some people making, thinking that people are going to reach out to you and ask you to come do the work for them. That's not the case. We had to go get it. We dig our nails in every day. Every time we wake up, it's something different. But just understanding, like some people have said up here, this is hard work. I didn't realize the hours that I'd be putting in and some of the sacrifices that I'd be making. But if I could have told myself that then, I'd be a lot more prepared for when it actually did happen.
I would definitely say writing again. Like, please go to your scripting class on time this week, or at all. That was the foundation of, I was always really interested in the computers, software, the post-production side, and as getting into the business and then being exposed to all of it here, but then actually going through it day in and day out, whether you're writing an email, a script, a shot list, a brief, anything, every part of the production process and getting a deliverable to a client is based on writing and developing that, whether it's creatively or technically, and there's so many different applications for it. So I definitely would have told myself to show up to script class early.
Well, I would say while you're here, you make sure you want to take advantage of the extracurricular things you can do to learn some skills. I know they do the sports streaming, the weekly news shows and conferences. Still do NBS and the sports conferences and stuff, because that'll give you a lot better idea of what it's really going to be like whenever you get past the school phase and into the job phase.
For me, it would be not just to have an internship, just 1 or 2 internships, but to go back and really shadow several different companies. You guys got a lot of cards today, and I would say pretty much any of us up here, I know we would, hey, can I hang out with you guys a couple days? Do y'all have a video shoot coming up? Do y'all have something I could just come hang out and watch you guys, see what you do? So I would do more of that. I would have gone to several different companies and just kind of shadowed them just to see what all was out there. So I would encourage you guys to do that.
Pretty much the same thing she said, except I would have told myself to not get rid of my Jeep in college because I really loved that vehicle. And I've just now been able to get another one. So, but anyway, no, I think what she's saying, take advantage of getting into more avenues of what you can do in production and communications. There are so many things that I wasn't even aware of until I'd been in the business 10 years and kept kind of stumbling in. Okay, I stumbled into corporate video. Oh, you can make a living doing corporate video. That's kind of cool. Oh, there's this whole outdoor, hunting shows and all sorts of stuff that I just never knew existed because I was kind of locked into my little box in college and was just so focused on get in and get out that I didn't take advantage of a lot of things that I should have. So exposure.
If I could go back, I would tell myself to not just think that learning happens in the classroom. I would tell myself, like we talked about earlier, YouTube is such a huge platform, especially right now. People make a living on YouTube. I wish that I had gone back and looked up more specific tutorials on Premiere, on After Effects especially. I didn't know anything about After Effects when I started working at Hibbett, and then I had to learn it. Which luckily I'm blessed enough to work at a position where I was able to learn it on the job. But going back, I wish I would have looked up more specific tutorials. There are tutorials for everything that are free that you can just watch, and it's amazing. And there's lots of vloggers who are specific media creators and that they have great content that you can learn from. And I still watch videos on YouTube, like as I edit, just listening to their types of creativity and like how can I make that work for me and into what I want to do. When I was in college, I had a closed mind thinking that all I could do with my degree was be on news. And similar to what you said earlier, I didn't want to tell bad news every single day. I can't handle that. I'm a happy person. I want to be happy. So once I discovered that, I found some other types of jobs that I could get. I found a wedding videography company. I second shot for them. I started making videos, wedding videos myself. I used that for my reel when I applied to Hibbett. So I would just say, don't be closed-minded to what you think you can only do with your job. Everything that we do up here is going to be completely different than what you might be able to do in the future, because media is always changing. So just always keep an open mind. And I wish that I would have had that more so than like I do now. So just an open mind.
If I could go back to my college and tell my college self, I'd buy shares in Apple, Amazon, and Google. That would have been awesome, huh? Really, everyone said pretty much a lot up here. I will say that listen to your instructors, listen to the courses that they're talking about. And reason being is that one course that we took at in film studies was on a very abstract theory called the auteur theory in French cinema. It was taught by an amazing professor named Dr. Jeremy Butler. And you come to this class as a sophomore, and you're like, and he hands this book on Cahiers du Cinéma. You're like, what is this? And it was French cinema. You're like, wait a second. I mean, I thought cinema started with John Wayne, and I thought this was, that was the cinema that we grew up with, right? And he's like, no, man, way before American cinema, there was French cinema. And it was a very abstract concept as a student for me to wrap my head around. And I kept, coming to class that same day. It was a difficult class, and I kept coming to that class going, how am I ever going to use this? Why am I learning about Eisenstein and German expressionism film and all that stuff? What's an auteur? Why would I use an auteur? I want to be a cameraman, right? I want to do this. But he was right. That professor was right. You can then go back and look at your history as a director, and you say, okay, I know why I'm doing this. I know why I'm placing this in this scene, or I know why this is speaking to me, because it's the auteur theory. It's what great directors did and still do to this day. I had no idea that was ever going to be applicable to what I'm doing. But every now and then I come back to these things that, I wish I was really in tune in that class, or I wish I didn't skip that class that day, because I did. But then going back to it now, I'm like, no, you know what, there was a method to his madness. And so just listen a lot. Now's the time. You guys are sponges. Take it all in. Excellent professors down here. They got a lot to teach. They got massive amounts of experience. And just listen, because you may not use it the first year, but 4 or 5 years down the road when you leave college, you'll be like, oh yeah, I remember that. Oh yeah, I know exactly what he's talking about. So that'd be my advice.
Thank you. I'd like to talk a little bit, or ask you a technical question about like your tools in your toolbox that each of you uses, whether it's software, cameras, lights, just some technical things that you use on a daily basis, and maybe elaborate where you get your music from. Do you subscribe to certain services? How does that work as far as, do you pay a local artist to come in and play? What are some tools you use on a daily basis that we may not be aware of?
Okay, so two-part question. First of all, music. Music's an interesting thing. Music is dependent on client budget, right? So if the client has got a lot of money, you can go after a copywritten track performed by a great artist, right? Like you see if you're watching the Olympics, there's a bunch of good stuff out there. Another thing is to find a great musician, or maybe you have a musician on staff that can write something. That's definitely a huge deal. Plenty of musicians, plenty of people writing music now, and they can basically score it to your edited piece. So you can go ahead, edit it, hand it to a friend who's a musician, have them score it. That works really, really well. And then, of course, man, if you really don't have any of those resources, there's so many different websites, premiumbeat.com, those type places where, $50, $35, you can license a track. And then there's just, Killer Tracks, you name it. There's just a massive amounts of music libraries out there Some are cheaper, some are more expensive, and you kind of get what you pay for. You know, some of the more expensive ones have real instrumentation and real musicians playing it. Some of the cheaper ones, everyone's doing it all in a synthesizer. You know, they're all imported sounds. So that's kind of my experience with music. As far as what we're using, as far as cameras, Sony, Canon, Panasonic are the big three right now that's out there. As far as in doing kind of what we're doing for the price point that we're doing. Editing software is all Adobe Cloud products now. If we're doing something that's a longer format like a documentary, we'll move into the Avid suite. Avid has a little bit more of a long format, more of a documentary compartmentalized way to deal with things. But other than that, it's the Adobe Cloud products are pretty much have taken off this industry by storm. And whether you shoot in 4K, 2K, or 1920 by 1080 in standard HD, that all depends on the final output of where your video is going to be, and that's the most important. When you go into a client, you always have to ask, what's the final use of this going to be? Is it going to be projection, or is it just going straight to YouTube? If so, that kind of sometimes determines where you start with your native format, and then you take it from there.
For our music tracks, we have a subscription with Killer Tracks. So, like what you were saying earlier, there's so many different types of libraries for music. Some you can buy per license, per song. Some you can have a subscription to the entire site and use any song, as many songs as you want. And sometimes those are more effective depending on what type of job you're doing and what type of company you're working for. So we use Killer Tracks, and as for equipment that we use, I film with a Canon 1DX Mark II. I like to film in 4K because I like cropping it down to 1080. It just gives me more room to have any types of like shoot a static shot and have post movement. So because you can zoom in when it's 4K, and 4K 1080 looks better than 1080. And then I use I'm not sure how specific you want to get with this, but we have a white backdrop and a white turntable is how we start most of our shoe videos, our product videos. And we also, for voiceovers, we just use, the Rode microphones and Sennheisers and all that type of stuff.
Same thing on music. We have a music subscription. We use audio blocks. We also subscribe to some video services that are similar. So if we're looking for a specific video clip and I don't have time to go to Colorado and shoot a great mountain scene, I can pay money and buy one and have the license to use it. That's cool. Another thing that I'm finding really helpful for what we do, because so much of what we do is for local businesses who don't have big budgets, and we're trying to put lots of content out for them. So getting quality voiceovers that are affordable are sometimes hard to do. I have local people I use and use them as much as I can. But there are now several websites out there where you can go and you can actually negotiate with these guys. I love your voice. I've got 3 scripts and they're going to be broadcast or they're going to be internet based. How much? And they tell me and I go, well, I don't think so. Are you willing to do it for this? Sure. And you come to, it's so cool, and you can really get anything within any budget. And then as far as equipment goes, we use Canon DSLRs, we use JVC, Panasonic, Sony. I've got every camera ever created from top to bottom in 25 years. The little camera that's over there in the corner is actually a Mevo cam, and it's a live streaming camera, and it allows you to do multi-camera. It's a 4K camera, so like she was talking about with 4K technology, and especially when it's going to be live streamed to this tiny little window, you can choose camera angles all within that camera. So if you're doing an interview, you can put it on autopilot and tell it, hey, every time you see somebody talking, get a close-up, and it'll get a close-up, and it does it all automatically. So you can shoot your own interview and record the 4K, or you can live stream it. So a lot of cool stuff out there, not super expensive. But it just depends on what niche you're in. We know what niche we're in. We're after smaller businesses that we're trying to explain to them how to get into the marketing world. And so our equipment is kind of prosumer. We have high-end stuff too, but there's just so much stuff out there.
So we can't use any of our cool equipment unless we have customers and clients. So that's my job. I go and get the clients, and a lot of ours comes from referrals. We'll have a client and say, hey, do you have any buddies that have a business? That kind of thing. But what I do a lot of times is I always look for people who are always spending money on already spending money on advertising, because they see the value in it. They already have the budget. I may look through magazines or people who are running commercials on the radio, that kind of thing. So that's a good way to go after clients.
Being strictly an editor, my whole day is split between the Adobe After Effects suite. The Adobe suite, with 90% of my day being in After Effects, just making the motion graphics and stuff. So I would just add that if it's something you're interested in, it's probably a really good skill to have in the back pocket, really, at any media-related company or business.
Yeah, I would excuse me. I'd definitely say, the internet is your friend. You can basically find basically anything you want on the internet, and it's just like what everybody else has kind of been saying. It's kind of a balance between price point, budget, quality, and style. There's so many different sources. Each one's a little different. One music site's instrumentation and production process is going to make the music sound different than another site. As far as specific tools we use, we license with a music company called Mass Comm. And as far as our opinion, some albums are better quality than other albums. It's got the big thing there is quantity and diversity, and that's really just why we like that service. Same for voiceover. It's voices.com, or I think Voices123 is one. We find a lot of talent, and we'll just contact them directly. There's so many different options out there. Some negotiate, some won't. And then as far as software, we run all Mac suites, and it's the Adobe Cloud, and it's pretty straightforward and consistent these days versus what it's been so much in the past. And then as far as production, I'll let RJ speak on that.
Nothing's really going to differ from anything that anybody else said for us. One thing, I just needed to decide in the pre-production on what tool I'm going to take. I'm sure all of us up here probably own the same gear. I just need to understand what type of project it is that we're shooting. Do I need to have high speed, or do I not need to have high speed? Sometimes it's overkill for us to even take out our big camera like they were saying, and just understanding that a smaller DSLR will get the job done. I try to stay up as much as I can on the trends and what the best equipment out there is. There's some people that I follow that I trust, and I like their recommendations. So anytime something new's coming out, we've got to stay ahead of the curve as well, and we just kind of upgrade our equipment as it comes out. I know that can get expensive, especially when you're in college. And one thing that I would keep in mind is you guys can rent anything. I didn't know that in college. There are websites that you can create accounts with, lens rental. You can rent anything and everything that you could possibly need to have for a production and whatever it is that you're trying to produce. So we, in the professional world, are constantly renting stuff. I don't have a need to have a $60,000 to $100,000 camera sitting on the shelf at home or in the office when we're not using it very often. But if there's a need or a client that we have that I see fit for that to be, we're just going to rent it just like you guys would. And then I also have to understand the crew that's underneath me or my skill set. Do I understand how to use this camera once I rent it? Because, yeah, I can have a fancy camera, but if I don't know how to run the fancy camera in an efficient manner, what's the point? So I have to understand the people that are working with me, working underneath me, and understand if they know how to use that tool as well.
Also, I'd say always buy used, always. Especially being a student, getting into it, except memory cards. Don't buy used memory cards or hard drives. But otherwise, it's serious. You can save some good money. You get great tools. There's all these rental places sell their gear, used on the back end. Of course, everyone has their own opinion on it, but you definitely save a lot of money.
Okay, we have one more question, and then it'll be time to eat. Does anybody have the last question, or you want me to do it? Morgan, you'll have to come up here and talk in the microphone so we get a good level on the camera.
I was just going to ask the question, how important is it to get certified, like with the Adobe products? Like I know Mr. Pruitt is certified with it. Does it add value to the hiring process, or is it more just about like knowing the software?
Well, that's really above my pay grade. I don't really deal with that stuff too much. I would say being certified in anything will add value to yourself or any company. For what I do, I had no choice but to get certified to be a drone pilot. That's just the rules and regulations. So that certification I didn't have an option on. I'm glad that I have it. I'm glad that our company has it, because that's the only way we can operate. But when thinking about anything in this industry or anything you do in life, if there's a piece of paper that says you're good at it, then you're good at it. Dylan will be able to answer that better than I can.
I mean, in my opinion, if we were hiring someone and I'm looking at their resume, I think it definitely adds a plus. It shows familiarity and skill set, but inevitably, if we were hiring an editor or a shooter, we want to see they're real. And that's gonna tell you everything you need to know as far as whether or not what the skill set and level of that person.
Yeah, whenever we get excess work at Strong, more than just the two editors that are there can handle. I mean, I've never once heard the hiring editor mention the certification. He's just looking strictly at what they've produced before. So.
Yeah, same thing. Certification, I think if you're going to go into teaching, it's definitely something you want, because that's that showing that you've taken that extra step. But in my business, like these guys, I just want to see that you can do the job and do it efficiently.
I agree with everything everybody has said. I wouldn't look at it, if you don't have it, as I'm not going to hire them. I do think it would be a plus. I'm not certified, but I can use a handful of the Adobe products.
Yeah, kind of the same thing. Just ditto all the way down the line, so nothing to add.
I lied. We have one last question. We have exactly 5 minutes. So this is to each of you of, can you add something, anything else you'd like to add that has not previously been mentioned?
The first thing I'll say is to anyone who's a senior or graduating or whatever, just have realistic salary expectations. It is a difficult business now, because of, there's a lot of people doing it right now. So whereas 15 years ago, when you came out as an editor, you were able, because the equipment was so sophisticated, you were able to demand a pretty high price point per your hour and per what you did. You were a really skilled, highly trained technician. Now you come out and that price point, that salary point has has dropped a little bit, unfortunately. So just have relative expectations. It's coming out of college the first year, you might be able to land a great job, and that's awesome. But just have kind of realistic expectation. Just know what bills need to be paid, know what you can do. But I promise you, if you stick with it, that first year is going to be difficult, but if you stick with it, it really will be rewarding. I mean, the money will come. It's just not going to happen right out of the gate. Might be different. Didn't happen to me. But it might have happened to some other panelists, but that'd be my expectations.
I'm not sure if this has been said or not, but I do think it's very important to make relationships with the person sitting to your left, to your right, in front of you and behind you, and all of your professors, because as cliche as it sounds, everybody, networking really is how you get a lot of jobs, whether it's from referrals. If one business can't do something, like I know with wedding videography, if one person's busy, they refer them to a friend, somebody that they trust. So I actually got my position from another alum who's in another room over here talking. He and I were friends in school. We worked together. the position was open, and he let me know about it, and I got it.
I think talking a little bit on the salary part, I tell everybody I make killer money about 3 times a year. The rest of the time is just loving what I do. So be passionate about what you want to do, and then the long hours, the crappy money sometimes, the crappy people you deal with sometimes, it's not that big a deal because you really are passionate about what you're doing. And if you find a love for what you do, then you'll be successful with it.
I just want to encourage you guys that this industry is a great adventure. So you're about to be on a great adventure, so enjoy the ride.
Yeah, I would just reiterate something I said earlier, which is, try to be proactive with the different kind of things that the department has going on, because that's where you'll learn. I feel like I learn more doing that than, just in a lecture or something like that. So.
I'll keep it short and sweet, but I mean, in the big picture, I'd say be confident, be passionate, and stay hungry, because really anything's possible in this industry. It's changing day by day. It's so fast. Make your head spin. And, just like someone said earlier, what's going to be happening in the business 2 years from now will be completely different from what's happening today. The same way 5 years ago and 10 years ago, it was a completely different world. And so if you be confident, stay hungry, and be passionate about what you do, you'll never work a day in your life.
So I had something, but they all took it, so it's okay. Great answers, by the way. Great panel up here. But everybody's going to do something in the early stages of their career that you're going to get paid just by that passion. Every one of us probably up here has cut a video, ran a camera for free, just because the next opportunity they knew we can do it. And that's even in business, we've given breaks just because we needed a break ourselves, and we've been in business 5 years now, and that's how we made it. We cut a couple deals when we started in year 1, and people understood that they knew at that moment, okay, these guys may know what they were talking about. Verdict's still up in the air whether or not we're any good at what we do, but every single one of us up here and in our company is driven by passion. It has nothing to do with the money, because the money may come sometimes, but that's not what I'm worried about. I'm worried about every day. I can't wait to get out of bed, because I get the opportunity to go do this, not I have to go do this. There's just no other industry I could be in doing. I'm just passionate about it, and that's all it's about for me, is just being happy in life and doing what I love. So.
Thank y'all. On behalf of the department, I'd like to thank y'all for being on our panel, and thank you students and audience members for coming to listen to us. And let's go eat. Concludes our panel.